3 reasons why you should take your family
to Virginia and DC.
Hi, we're the Care Kids.
Our parents are crazy. They want to take us on a year-long trip.
They call it an empathy expedition.
We're traveling the states to discover what makes us united.
50 states and 52 weeks.
And I saw you, cause I wanna be like the wind. I wanna run with you. Oh, we can be wolves, howling at the great white moon. I wanna be by your side when we light up the sky for the world to see. Run, 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 run with me.
Number 1, the museums.
30 seconds. You gotta push, you gotta hold the button and push.
There are a lot of museums that are all part of the Smithsonian, and most of them are free and easy to access. Some of them you have to get in line in advance and have a little bit of advance notice, but the majority of them you can go from museum to museum and have lots of hands-on experiences.
Yeah, DC is one that you definitely want to plan in advance for because as Matt just said, yeah, some of the museums, especially the brand new Black History Museum, that one I'm pretty sure you have to book out at least, several weeks in advance. We weren't aware before we got there how much of Washington DC is just free to the public. Their public transportation is very affordable, so easily accessible to families and really fun. You can run around from museum to museum, just hitting as many of them as you care to in a day and just have your mind blown. It's really fun.
And make sure you have your good walking shoes on because
Lots of
your feet
walking.
will get very sore.
Yep.
The second reason why you should take your family to Washington, D.C., the history. There's so much history within Washington itself, being able to go to the Library of Congress.
This is Thomas Jefferson's library right here. It's big.
Not all of them are original books, though.
Why?
Because a fire burnt down the building that held his book.
And then another fire.
And then, yeah. So now they actually raised the project and they're collecting all the replacement ones.
This is a fireproof room though. No one can burn this place down.
The monuments and the museums. But then in addition to that, just outside of Washington, D.C., you can go to Mount Vernon.
Yeah, George Washington, right? The man, the myth, the legend. And he didn't feel like a myth or a legend anymore after you walked in his home. He was a real human being who lived there. And it was fun to learn more about the history of George Washington.
But one of the reasons why he's the man, the myth, the legend is because during that time period, there were so many people who hung on to power. Not just hung on to power, but fought to keep power. And George Washington was one of the first to say, you know what? After I'm finished with this, I'm done. I'm giving it back to the people. I want to go back to my home on Mount Vernon. I want to live there and I want to die there. And I am grateful for the opportunity that I've had to make a difference in this country. But I think after I'm finished, it's time for other people to take over. And that was something that was pretty profound.
Mm-hmm. I didn't realize that George Washington never really wanted to be the president. He wasn't campaigning for it. They found him and approached him, which was also true with several of the other presidents that we learned about throughout the trip. Dwight D. Eisenhower was in the same boat. He was not like, ooh, pick me, but they were like, hey, you've got what we need, please come. And they George Washington was in the same seat and they were like begging him, please, we need you. We need someone who's not power hungry, who's got, real vision for everyone, for the people. And so that's an interesting concept, right? Thinking like, how would that be today if we didn't have politicians who wanted to be, and if we were picking them instead of them, begging us to vote for them. It's just an interesting dynamic to think about. But
it is, and it's interesting to see. So the monuments in Washington D.C. and throughout that area, typically the greatest monuments are to the people who they were fighting for something, but they weren't fighting for their legacy, I guess is the right word. Mm-hmm. You look at one of the busiest monuments while we were there was the Lincoln Memorial, and he was fighting to keep our country together. not fighting to be remembered himself. Martin Luther King, there was a monument to him. And it was interesting, Lindsay's dad was a highway patrolman, and he passed away in a high-speed chase, and there was a monument to all the fallen officers, which was very touching to me, to be in that area and see all these monuments to all these great men, and then have that tie to someone who I never met, but had a huge influence on my family.
I think that's something we've learned over and over throughout this trip, is just that all of the history books that we've read all through our years of schooling, that those are real people. And it just really does hit home when you start going and you know, walking on their old stomping grounds. And the future of our country is going to be paved by real people, you know, real people who do real good things, and just by us. Yeah, the future of our country is paved by people doing good things, people like all of us.
The third reason why we loved taking our kids to Washington, D.C. was to gain a deeper understanding about our national politics.
One of our highlights in Washington, D.C. was getting to meet up with our Utah State Senator, Mike Lee. We looked online before we came. We had heard from friends that you needed to book ahead if you wanted to tour the White House. And so we also looked into touring the state capitol, which included, for Utah, it includes meeting up with Senator Lee. He has a certain day of the week where you get to go into his office, and he has, of course, aides that are there. They're college-age interns. And one of them gave us a really fun tour of the Capitol, and then the others prepared green Jell-O.
That's the Jell-O.
Super good.
There were several other guests besides us, but we all had a little Jell-O party together and ate green Jell-O in honor of Utah's state snack. The tour of the Capitol building was really interesting. All these amazing statues of old senators and old politicians who have influenced our U.S. government.
The statue saved someone's life because it bounced off and it missed them. Now the thing about it, the bullet hole was such close range that they've tried to sand it down and fix it, but it's so deep that they were just like, you know what, we can't do this, just leave it as it is. So this is now, not only is the statue here, but the bullet hole is also a part of history as well.
One of my favorite parts that the girls and I got to go into was a women's lounge. It's for all of the female senators. They have basically like a little green room where they can go and prepare for their meetings, and sometimes they're there for endless hours, and so they even have some lounge chairs where they can take naps if they need to. They have little refrigerators, but it was girls only, so that was kind of fun. We knocked on the door. The intern who was giving us the tour knocked on the door and said, "Hey, I've got a family here who would be interested in, you know, looking inside." And she said, "Okay, but only the girls." So the boys had to wait outside, and we got to go in and meet the assistant who works in there, and it was just fun to see beautiful portraits of past female senators who have served our country, and just kind of see where they hang out when they're in between meetings and Senate sessions and in their downtime. So that was fun.
We were able to go and watch our state senator preside on the Senate floor, and so that was very interesting. We had to go through a lot of security. We couldn't film in there, obviously, but we had to go through a lot of security, and then we were able to go in and actually see the Senate floor, where laws are passed, where speeches are made, and where history happens, and our kids got to witness that firsthand. But we had to go through a lot of security, and then we were able to go in and actually see the Senate floor, where laws are passed, where speeches are made, and where history happens, and our kids got to witness that firsthand.